Imagine a vast, ancient continent, its spiritual landscape shaped by millennia of indigenous wisdom. Then picture the arrival of ships from a distant empire, bearing not just convicts and colonizers, but a new faith, Christianity. This was no mere historical footnote. It was a profound collision of worlds, a spiritual and cultural encounter that irrevocably altered the destiny of a nation. How did this powerful belief system take root in such hallowed ground? And what enduring legacy did it forge in the crucible of colonization? Before the sails of European ships ever pierced the horizon, the continent now known as Australia was a vibrant tapestry of indigenous cultures. For over 60,000 years, these first peoples cultivated sophisticated spiritual traditions, deeply interwoven with the land, its creatures, and the very fabric of existence. Their cosmology, often encapsulated in the concept of the dreaming or dream time, provided a profound framework for law, morality, and identity. These were not simple beliefs, but intricate systems of knowledge, ceremony, and connection passed down through countless generations. The land itself was a sacred text, imbued with ancestral spirits and stories that guided every aspect of life. Thus, when Christianity arrived, it did not encounter a spiritual void, but a deeply resonant and ancient spiritual ecosystem, already rich with meaning and purpose. In 1788, the British First Fleet anchored in Sydney Cove, marking a pivotal moment in Australia's history. Aboard these 11 vessels, alongside convicts, marines, and administrators, was Reverend Richard Johnson, the colony's inaugural chaplain. His presence underscored the British conviction that spiritual order was inseparable from civil governance. Johnson's mandate was clear: to instill moral discipline among the disparate population and to establish the tenets of the Church of England. This initial implantation of Christianity was therefore intrinsically linked to the imperial project, serving both as a beacon of salvation and a tool for social control. The question arises: was this primarily a genuine evangelical endeavor or a strategic component of colonial expansion? Early Australia was conceived not as a mission field, but as a distant penal colony, a dumping ground for Britain's burgeoning criminal population. In this harsh environment, religious observance was often compulsory, a stark reflection of the era's belief in spiritual reformation through enforced piety. Church services became mandatory assemblies, where sermons frequently emphasized obedience to authority and the divine right of rulers. The theological underpinnings of this era often drew from scriptures like Romans 13, which commanded submission to governing powers. Yet, amidst the brutal conditions, Christianity also offered solace, hope, and a sense of community for some. This created a profound paradox: a faith simultaneously used to enforce subjugation and offer spiritual liberation, a tension that would define its early trajectory. As British settlement expanded, Christian missions followed, establishing outposts on the frontiers of indigenous lands. Missionaries, driven by the Great Commission to make disciples of all nations, arrived with a complex mix of intentions. Some genuinely sought to provide education, healthcare, and spiritual guidance, believing they offered a path to salvation and a better life. However, many also explicitly aimed to dismantle indigenous spiritual practices, languages, and cultural structures, viewing them as primitive or pagan. This often led to devastating cultural disruption, as traditional ways of life were systematically undermined. The question of genuine conversion versus coerced assimilation remains a painful and central aspect of this historical encounter, highlighting the profound power imbalance inherent in the missionary enterprise. Over time, Australia's Christian landscape diversified significantly, mirroring waves of immigration and global religious trends. The Anglican Church, as the established faith, initially held sway, but it was soon joined by other traditions. Irish Catholic convicts and immigrants brought their distinct faith, often facing discrimination in a predominantly Protestant society. Methodists, Presbyterians, and later Pentecostal movements also established vibrant communities, each contributing to a complex religious mosaic. This denominational variety reflected not only theological differences, but also social class, ethnic identity, and political allegiances. Christianity in Australia was never monolithic. It was a dynamic interplay of diverse expressions, often reflecting and reinforcing the societal divisions of the time. As Australia journeyed towards nationhood, culminating in federation in 1901, Christianity's role evolved. It transitioned from being primarily an instrument of colonial authority to a broader cultural force, deeply embedded in the emerging national identity. Churches played a pivotal role in establishing educational institutions, running extensive charitable organizations, and shaping public morality. Yet, even as its cultural influence permeated society, participation in organized religion began a gradual decline, particularly accelerating after the mid-20th century. This shift prompts critical reflection. Was it the trauma of global conflicts, the rise of secular thought, or perhaps a growing disillusionment with institutions perceived as complicit in colonial injustices? The reasons are multifaceted, reflecting a complex interplay of social, political, and spiritual forces. Today, Australia stands as one of the most secular nations in the Western world, with declining church attendance and religious affiliation. Yet, the indelible imprint of Christianity remains visible in its legal systems, public holidays, architectural heritage, and the enduring work of its charitable organizations. This creates a fascinating paradox, a pervasive cultural legacy coexisting with diminishing active religious practice. We are compelled to ask, how profoundly did Christianity shape Australia's values and social structures, even for those who do not identify as religious? Was it ultimately a force for moral good and social cohesion, or a primary driver of cultural destruction, particularly for Indigenous communities? And how should this complex history, with its profound impacts on First Peoples, be honestly acknowledged and integrated into our national narrative? These are not questions with simple answers, but essential inquiries for a mature understanding of Australia's past and present. Christianity's arrival in Australia was a moment of immense historical and spiritual consequence, a confluence of sincere faith, imperial ambition, and profound cultural encounter. It brought both hope and hardship, transformation and trauma, shaping the continent in ways that continue to resonate. To truly understand this epoch, we must embrace its complexities, acknowledging both the light and shadow it cast. This journey through history demands intellectual honesty, a willingness to confront uncomfortable truths, and a commitment to understanding diverse perspectives. It is through such rigorous inquiry that we can truly grasp the enduring legacy of faith, power, and culture. Join us at the Scholar's Ledger as we continue to explore these vital intersections. Subscribe, share your insights in the comments below, and let us collectively seek a deeper understanding of our shared human story.